Bonjour darling! Today I am back with a new video to talk to you about one of my recent reads. It's a classic of science fiction and it is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, or La machine à explorer le temps in French because I read the translation. Let me make a quick summary of it because I think it's possible that some of you have only watched the movie adaptation, and let me say it has nothing to do with what happens in the book. We follow a few characters that are regularly invited by a man whose name we never learn, the time traveler. The story is told by one of these people that just tells us what the man told them. So it's a narrator that is included in the story, which is a device that I kind of like actually when it's done well, and here it is done very well. These men are just scientists and journalists and philosophers and just thinkers of their time, and they unite together to talk about problems and theories they have. That kind of things happened a lot in the time where the story is set. It happens in the early, I just checked, it happens in the early 20th century or the end of the 19th century. It's never really told, but it's the time where H.G. Wells, who is the author, I didn't say it, sorry, lived, so we can just assume, especially with the way the people are talking, the fact that they reunite every week to talk in this salon, we can just assume. One day, the time traveler tells these people that he invited in his home that he invited time traveling, that time is just another dimension that you can go through either in the future or in the past. And after a few days where he make a demonstration, I will not tell you how to not spoil too much, they come back in his home and he will start telling them that he actually finished the machine he was talking about and that he traveled through a really long way into the future. I will give you 3 bad points and 3 good points about that book. Let's first say that I rated it 4 stars, so I really liked it, but there are a few things that I have a problem with. So first, the 3 bad points. 1, I had a few problems with the way the only female character in the book was portrayed. I know it's a product of its time, but I just couldn't take this now cliché of a feeble woman that has to be saved by the hero and that basically says nothing throughout the book. Can you say that I'm trying not to spoil too much? Like, I know it's a classic, but I also know that not everybody reads classics, so... Then the second bad point, I would say, is that for a really big part of the book, nothing happens really. Yes, the time traveler told his story to his friends, but he didn't do much. I know it is just a case of personal taste because it is a book of exploration and discovering a world, well, a time that he was not, the main character was not part of, and that the focus wasn't on the action or on the dialogue or anything or the character development, but still, how to say that without spoiling too much? Yes, he explored and tried to understand and discover things, but he didn't do a lot in the majority of the book, and it's a short book, so you can imagine how short the real actions and the parts where he was an actual protagonist and not just an onlooker lasted in the overall story. So yeah, it bothered me. I know for some people it won't be a bother, but because they will be enthusiastic to discover that time period H.G. Wells imagined, but to me it was a little bit of a bummer, even though I still rated the book 4 stars. And the third problem I had was with the main character himself, because he's telling his story and his thoughts and everything, and as said before, he's a product of his time, but he was kind of an ass. He was so pretentious and so judgmental and so quick to jump to conclusions. He thought he was so intelligent. Of course he was intelligent because he made allegedly a machine to go through time, but still, you're not a sociologist. You study physics, not people. That's all I want to say. So, the 3 good points, because there were. The first one would be the way the story is told. As I said, the narrator is a character in the book, which I like when it's done well, and it was done well here. The way it is the story is given is like if we were reading a memoir of the man that is giving us this story that the time traveler told him, which is quite interesting actually, because, and we will go directly to our second good point, because we don't know if the story is true. Because the narrator himself, who is a part of the story, doesn't know either. And he's trying to be as objective as possible, giving us only the facts and what was told, which is amazing because in the end, we just have the words of that crazy man, the time traveler, because he's presented as kind of crazy, at least through the eyes of the narrator, because he's a little bit unreliable since he has his own opinions, even though he tries to be factual. He seems to admire him, but still think of him as a crazy person. So it's really an interesting and good plot device. The doubt is here throughout the tale, because, and this will be our third good point, because what he tells is so incredible. Even though I didn't quite like the female character, the woman. I don't know if I can say woman because the human beings evolved. So is she a woman or is she just female of her species? Since it's such a short story, I will try not to give you too much information. I will let you discover the species that appeared and all that stuff if you want to read it. You discover, as I said, different species that descended from humankind, and you discover a different type of architecture. I'm really sorry if you hear a dog barking, I can't help it. You discover also a different kind of social structure, and there are problems of language because the language evolved a lot. You discover different technologies, and it's really, really interesting. And I really loved that. As I said, the not acting and just looking and exploring part was too long for me, but it doesn't mean that I didn't like what he saw and discovered. It is still a good point for me. Overall, I think it is a classic for a good reason because of the way the story is structured, because of the time period H.G. Wells imagined, the way he imagined our society evolving, and the way he imagined our species evolving was so intricate and well done. And also, of course, it is a commentary of our society. You will say, oh, but he lived between 1866 and 1949, if I remember correctly. Let me check. No, 1866 and 1946. So our society has already evolved. Well, in ways, yes, it evolved, but not really though, because we are still in a capitalist society. So the structures he is commenting on still exist nowadays. And it's interesting to discover what that author of the beginning of the last century had to say about that, and to reflect on our actual society and whether or not we are going in the direction he anticipated. Really interesting indeed. Please tell me what you thought about that book, if you read it, or if this video gives you the need to read it. It's a short read, it's not that expensive at all. You can buy it on ebook, or maybe your library has an app to read it on your phone. Don't hesitate because it's really a good book. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of any new content I post. You can also follow me on social media, all links down below. And as always, au revoir, darling!